What a joy to find the open air again. And what a superb place. Lost in that gloomy labyrinth, I'd almost forgotten the hunger that was gnawing at my belly. Dinner time! At last. Hello, young man. Hello, my name is Arok. I'm glad to meet you. I haven't met anyone at all for some time.
It's true there aren't a lot of people around here. My name is Tor, and I'm glad to have a little company myself. I'm a carver, and I've been traveling a lot for some time now, in search of good raw materials and to trade. What are you doing around here?
I come from the high plateau, beyond the mountain. I'm looking for the hill with the white grotto. A painter friend is expecting me there.
I don't know that place, but I have seen quite a few paintings around here. You're probably going the right way. What's the name of the man you're looking for?
Klem.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that name.
It looks as though there might be people living up there in the cliff. I thought I saw a fire.
You're right, it's a dwelling. There are quite a few in the region. There are probably not many people there at this time of year. Most of the clans are at the Great Gathering.
What's that?
Oh, it was high time you left your plateau. The Great Gathering assembles all the clans in the valley. It's a good opportunity to share knowledge and to meet people.
I just caught a salmon. Do you want to share it with me?
With pleasure. What a great catch. It ought to be delicious, just slightly grilled. But you don't seem like a very well-prepared traveler. I've got something that ought to help you. With this, you could also make us some nice chamomile. I saw some growing in the valley.
One salmon's more than enough for me. Ow!
You'll do better with this. Chamomile tea is ready. It's perfect.
I'll let you drink it yourself, but as far as I'm concerned, I've never really liked that sort of thing. I've never seen a place like this. Back where I come from, it's still snowing.
I've heard of that region, but even though I've traveled a lot, I've always followed the course of the river. You can find everything you might want around here. Game, fish, plants. And of course, for a craftsman like me, it's better to stay near dwellings, because there's always someone who needs my services in exchange for a good hot meal. And you, why are you looking for that painter? Is he a relation?
No, I met Klem a long time ago. At the time, I would have liked to go with him, but I was much too young. And it was just by chance, when I was hunting a deer, that I found his trail. In any case, I hope that I haven't come all this way for nothing. I have no desire to return to my high plateau.
Don't worry. As determined as you seem, I'm sure you'll find him. Thank you. It looks delicious. Here's half of it. You look starved.
It's true. It was good. I didn't do too badly for a beginner at the cooking stone. You told me before that you were a carver. What's your specialty? Do you work with bone, or wood, or flint?
With flint, young man. And I'm happy to see you're interested.
They say you can recognize a good flint napper by the flint he chooses. Is that true?
That is true. Knowing how to choose a good piece of flint is the first important step. And in fact, you're going to try your hand at it. But afterwards, you mustn't use the wrong tool. All right, enough idle chatter. Show me what you can do. Prepare a flint for me.
I'd love to, but I really don't know much about it.
I'm sure you'll manage with all that. It wasn't a good rock. The cracks running through it are, in fact, generally a bad sign. Anyway, try another. You did very well. Give it to me now, and I'll show you how to nap a blade.
Tor's gestures were perfect. I realized how lucky I was to take a lesson from such a virtuoso.
Here, Arok, take this knife. It's my way of thanking you for the meal.
Thanks very much. This blade is perfect.
You're welcome, but you had your part in it too. The flint was very well prepared.
I found some stones around here that look like they've been worked. Have you ever seen any like them?
Yes, these are musical stones. I found one too, and a bone that'd be perfect to strike them. You take them. I'm not very talented for that. I prefer chiseling stones. And of course, if you want to play something, you'll need at least 5 different sounds. Otherwise, it'll quickly become real boring.
I'm going to try to reach that dwelling up there. Do you know which way to go?
No, but I think that the signs left pretty much everywhere ought to help you find it. Safe journey, Arok. And who knows, perhaps we'll meet again.
Thanks again, and have a safe journey. At last, my efforts were rewarded. I left with my belly full, armed with a magnificent dagger, and firmly convinced I was on the right path. Tor is full of good advice, but I don't see how these symbols will help me find that dwelling. That must be the clue that was missing to find the dwelling. These symbols resemble those I just discovered. The entrance must not be far. Hello, I'm Arok.
Good to meet you, Arok. I'm Tika. What are you doing here?
I'm looking for a painter. Perhaps you could help me?
Maybe. But first, we have a tradition here that you should find amusing.
Tell me.
No, that's just it. It's up to you to tell me the story of your life. Every newcomer has to introduce himself to the clan first, using objects to illustrate his tale. If you don't have what you need on you, don't hesitate to help yourself to what you find in the den. This custom allows us to begin an exchange, even if the traveler doesn't speak the same language we do. I see that we can understand each other, but I do so like stories.
My trip began when I was hunting a stag. Unfortunately, I was not the only one who had decided to go out hunting. A lioness, who was after the same prey as I was, finally chose me for lunch. I took refuge in a cave. To find him again, first I had to get out of the cave. Free at last, I went through the mountain on a path that Klem had spoken of way back then. When I got to the top, I found myself in another cave where a huge bear was sleeping. I just had to cross one last pool before I got to the valley. Once in the valley, I was famished. I think that this time, I've at last managed to get my memories in order. Now I just have to find the objects that will best illustrate my journey. My trip began when I was hunting a stag. Unfortunately, I was not the only one who had decided to go out hunting. A lioness who was after the same prey as I was finally chose me for lunch. I took refuge in a cave, and that's where I picked up the trail of Klem. To find him again, first I had to get out of the cave. I had to make an astonishing weapon to vanquish that wild beast. Free at last, I went through the mountain on a path that Klem had spoken of way back then. It's a genuine labyrinth, decorated with red and black hands, which ends in a shaft. I climbed into the shaft, hoping to find a way out, but when I got to the top, I found myself in another cave where a huge bear was sleeping. I couldn't kill an animal that majestic, so I found a way to make it flee. I just had to cross one last pool before I got to the valley, and it's a fresco depicting stags that guided me to the exit. Once in the valley, I was famished. I decided to go fishing. Believe me, it isn't easy to catch a fish, but it sure was delicious. I shared it with a traveler, probably one of the best Flint nappers in the area. To thank me, he showed me how he worked. And after following the signs in the valley, I arrived here, at your home. Tika, I know this statue doesn't look too much like you, but I hope you won't hold that against me. Now, everything's in place. My tale is over. I hope the rest of my adventure is as exciting as this. There, I finished my story. I hope you liked it. I've got to admit that I was actually afraid of that sort of special introduction, but in the end, I enjoyed it.
You did very well. It's been a long time since someone told me an adventure of that sort.
I'm sure you understood that I'm looking for a painter by the name of Klem.
I've heard of him. He lives in this region, I think. But why are you looking for him?
I met him a real long time ago, but I'll never forget how he brought forth the spirits of the rock. I'd like him to teach me to do it.
You want to become a painter? That's wonderful. In the deepest part of the dwelling, there was a splendid painting that's been worn away over the years. Maybe you could do something about it.
But
go look. You'll tell me what you think of it. There must be some rough drafts someplace, some broken tablets. One of them might have been the inspiration for the big fresco.
where in the world could they be?
Certain painters leave them with the spirits, at the very heart of the ritual sites that they awaken.
have to put some in several places if I want there to be a chance for it to work. That should do it. So here are those famous broken tablets. They're not going to be easy to reassemble.